Lightning ripped across the Wyoming night, turning the vast Carter Ranch prairie into a fractured silver world. Emily Carter stood alone by her window,
we're right here.
watching the storm crawl over the land she'd fought to keep. Wind howled
Cedar.
through gaps in the old walls. The battered farmhouse creaked like it might finally give up. But Emily knew how to withstand storms. She'd weathered worse, in her soul and out here, beneath these endless skies.
Let her go, son. You did
She
all
poured
you
herself a
could.
mug of coffee, hand steady despite the
She's got
thunder
Rosie's
shaking the
heart.
rafters. On the mantel, dust covered a tarnished badge in a half-open drawer. She closed it with a quiet push, unwilling to touch the past tonight. Somewhere out there, wild horses ran for cover. Somewhere, her memories roamed, refusing to rest. A frantic pounding jolted her from her thoughts. Not the storm, something urgent, desperate. She snatched her rifle from its place by the door, boots heavy on the floorboards as she crossed the room. Another crash of thunder, and she flung the door open, bracing herself against the wind. A Mustang stood before her, sides heaving, dapple gray coat slicked dark with rain. The animal's eyes flashed with wild fear, one foreleg smeared with blood. Emily recognized her instantly. Sage, the fierce mare she'd seen a dozen times at the river, always untouchable, always alone. What in God's name? Emily lowered her rifle, stepping into the rain. Sage tossed her head, stamping her uninjured hoof. Lightning illuminated the yard, turning Sage's silhouette ghostly. The horse whinnied, a strange, choked sound, and turned toward the old stable, pausing to glance back. Emily hesitated only a moment. Storm or no storm, she couldn't turn away from pain. She grabbed her oilskin coat, shouldered her rifle, and followed Sage, boots sinking into mud. The wind ripped at her coat, rain stinging her cheeks, thunder rolling overhead. The world shrank to the light of her lantern, Sage's limping shape leading the way. The stable loomed, ancient boards rattling. Sage pawed at the door, snorting. Emily pushed inside, senses sharp. The smell of wet hay and old sweat hit her. Then another sound, softer, human. She raised her rifle, voice steady as ever. "Show yourself, now!" A figure stirred in the shadows, young, male, barely more than a boy. He lay curled in the straw, clutching a battered leather satchel to his chest. His shirt was torn, blood soaking his left shoulder. Pale, shaking, he looked up with hollow eyes. "Please, I didn't mean—" Emily's jaw tightened. She kept her rifle leveled. "Name, now." He hesitated, voice cracking. Ben Shaw, please, help me." He tried to sit up, only to collapse with a strangled gasp. The satchel thudded to the ground. Sage moved closer, standing guard, her flank pressed protectively to Ben's side. Emily's mind raced. Stranger, wounded, hiding on her land. In another life, she'd have arrested him on the spot. Badge shining at her hip. But she was no Marshal now, just a rancher, and a tired one at that. She glanced at Sage. How the Mustang, usually wild and wary, was refusing to leave Ben's side. That's odd, she thought. Sage's trust meant something, whether she wanted to admit it or not. With a sigh, Emily set her rifle aside, kneeling beside the boy. "Let me see the wound. Don't try anything. My horse will trample you before I can blink." Her hands worked quickly. Lantern light flickering over bloody fabric. The cut was deep, but not fresh. He'd lost a lot of blood. She pulled out a flask and a clean cloth, pouring whiskey over the gash. Ben cried out, nearly biting through his lip. Emily pressed the cloth hard, her eyes never leaving his. "You're lucky Sage found me. What are you running from?" Ben shivered, pain and fear mingling in his gaze. They'll kill me if they catch me. You shouldn't have helped. Emily wrapped his shoulder with a torn strip of her own undershirt, firm but not unkind. Who's after you, thieves, rustlers? Or did you bring trouble from town? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, shaking his head. Emily searched his face for lies, but all she saw was raw terror. Outside, thunder cracked again. Emily flinched, memory flooding her vision. Her husband's voice, the badge in her hand, the cold weight of justice. She forced herself back to the present, knotting the makeshift bandage. Ben tried to sit up, breathing ragged. Thank you. I just need a place to rest, just till morning. Rest then, Emily said, voice curt, but she dragged a blanket from the tack room and covered him anyway. She sat in the shadows, cleaning blood from her hands as rain battered the roof. She watched him, questions swirling. What was in that satchel? Why would Sage risk everything to bring him here? Why did she, Emily Carter, feel the old ache of duty stirring, even after all these years? In the lantern glow, she caught sight of her Marshal's badge in the half-open drawer. Lightning flashed, illuminating it like a buried star. Emily's hand trembled just once. She pressed it into a fist, eyes on the storm. Sleep, she said, voice softening. No one's dying on my land tonight. The wind howled. Sage stood sentinel by Ben's side. Emily listened to the thunder and wondered if this night everything would change. Ben woke to the soft creak of timber, golden slivers of early dawn light slanting through the cracks in the stable walls. The storm had broken, but the air still carried the tang of wet earth and wood smoke. For a moment, he thought he was safe, lost in a dream of distant laughter and sunlight, until the sharp ache in his shoulder snapped him back. Emily Carter sat nearby, cleaning her rifle with slow, deliberate motions. She glanced at him, her expression carved from Wyoming granite. Sage, the Mustang, stood near the stall, ears flicking at every noise. The mare's presence was somehow reassuring. Ben felt safer with her than with any person he'd met in months. Emily finished her work, setting the rifle aside. You're awake. That wound's ugly, but it'll hold. You owe Sage for dragging me out into the storm. She nearly took my arm off, you know. Ben managed a weak smile, but his eyes darted to the satchel resting beside him. Emily caught the glance, eyebrow arching. You want to tell me why you were bleeding in my stable with half a thunderstorm after you? Ben hesitated, biting his lip. He thought of lying, but something in Emily's steady gaze made him stop. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I was desperate. The men chasing me, they're not like ordinary thieves. They work for the Consolidated Mining Company. Emily stiffened. The company's name was poison in these parts, whispered about in saloons and at kitchen tables after sunset. Go on. Ben's voice dropped to a whisper. They're killing the valley, poisoning the water, driving out ranchers who won't sell. I used to work for them. My uncle's farm is gone now, his cattle dead. I stole these. He fumbled with the satchel, fingers trembling. Proof. Maps, letters, company ledgers. It's all in here. Enough to put them away, maybe, if anyone's left to listen. Emily's skepticism warred with something older and harder, a sense of justice she'd buried with her badge. Why bring this here? Why not run to the law in Cheyenne? Ben looked away, face gray. Company's got men everywhere. Lawmen on their payroll. The new Marshal, Victor Crow, he's one of theirs. Emily's mouth tightened at the name. Victor Crow. Once her rival, now a shadow stretching across the valley. She remembered his cold smile, the way he'd watched her husband's funeral from the end of the street, hat in hand. She shook off the memory, focusing on Ben. You think bringing trouble to my door is going to fix any of this? I have a ranch to run. I'm not the law anymore. Ben's eyes flashed, desperate. Please, I don't have anywhere else to go. They'll kill me for what I know, and they'll keep killing until nobody's left to stand up to them. A heavy silence filled the stable. The old clock in the kitchen ticked down the hall. Emily glanced at Sage, who nudged Ben's shoulder with her nose, snorting softly. It was strange, the Mustang acting like a dog, protective and watchful. Emily's resolve wavered. Maybe she wasn't the law, but she wasn't a coward either. She rose, pulling her coat tighter. If I help you, it's not because I trust you. It's because Sage does, and I trust her more than most people. Ben exhaled, relief flooding his face. Thank you, Emily. I swear I won't cause you any more trouble. A sudden sharp whinny from Sage interrupted him. The mare's head shot up, nostrils flaring. Emily spun to the door, heart pounding. Distant hoofbeats thundered over the muddy ground, growing louder. Get up, Emily hissed, grabbing Ben's arm and hauling him to his feet. They've found you! Ben staggered, clutching his satchel, pain tightening his jaw. Emily snatched her rifle, motioning for him to duck behind the bales of hay. She killed the lantern, plunging the stable into darkness, her breath slow and measured. The riders drew close. Emily glimpsed 3 shadows through a crack in the boards. Men in dusters, wide hats pulled low, rifles glinting in the dawn. One man swung down, boots splashing in the puddles. He tried the stable door. It creaked. Emily tensed, finger on the trigger. A voice outside, low and rough. Check inside. That damn Mustang led tracks right up here. If that boy's here, Crow wants him alive. The rest doesn't matter. Emily's stomach twisted. Ben's eyes were wide with terror. Sage flattened her ears, body taut as a bowstring. The men began circling the stable, one peering through the window. Emily whispered, "When I say go, crawl through the feed room. Stay low, don't make a sound." The door burst open. A lantern bobbed in the dark, casting wild shadows. Emily fired a shot overhead. Splinters rained down. The men cursed, ducking back. Sage reared, kicking at the boards, her scream echoing over the ranch. Emily shoved Ben toward the feed room, heart pounding. He crawled fast, clutching the satchel. Emily followed, rifle raised. Sage blocked the main aisle, hooves flailing, driving the men back. Gunfire erupted, shattering the quiet. Bullets punched holes in the wall as Emily and Ben escaped through the back, rainwater soaking their clothes. They huddled in the brush behind the stable, breaths ragged. The gunmen prowled the yard, searching, cursing. Emily pressed close to Ben, willing herself invisible. At last, the riders gave up, galloping into the storm's remains. For a long time, Emily and Ben didn't speak. Sage crept to their side, nicked but safe. Emily's hands trembled, the old thrill of danger alive in her veins. She stared at Ben, at the blood and mud, the battered satchel full of secrets. "Looks like you brought the war to my doorstep after all." He looked up, voice barely a whisper. "I'm sorry. I didn't know where else to go." Emily shook her head, a bitter smile twisting her lips. "Neither did I. Once." Above them, the dawn broke red and wild over the Carter Ranch, promising that nothing would ever be the same. The dawn air was heavy with the scent of rain and scorched gunpowder. As sunlight crept across the Carter Ranch, Emily Carter guided Ben through the back path behind the stables. her rifle never far from reach. Sage walked beside them, limping but alert, her dappled coat streaked with mud and rain. Ben clutched his satchel as if it were his lifeline, shivering from fever and exhaustion. Inside the house, Emily set her jaw, shutting the door firmly behind them. She grabbed a battered towel from the rack, tossed it to Ben. "Clean yourself up. You'll catch pneumonia if you don't." Her voice was brusque, but her eyes lingered on his bandaged shoulder with something like worry. She moved to the kitchen, stoked the stove and filled a kettle with water, the small rituals grounding her amid the chaos. Ben did as he was told, wincing as he dabbed at his wounds. The farmhouse, humble and worn, felt like a sanctuary. For a moment, he allowed himself to believe they were safe. Emily's mind raced with questions. She watched him from the corner of her eye. Why did Sage trust this stranger so deeply? Why did his story sound both desperate and true? And why, after years of running from her past, did she feel the old itch for justice gnawing at her again? As the water boiled, Emily made a decision. She'd need help, someone she trusted, and someone who could keep her secrets. She crossed the room and set a hand on Ben's good shoulder. "Stay put, touch nothing. I'll be back soon. If you hear horses, you hide. Understood?" Ben nodded, eyes wide. "I understand." Emily pulled on her oilskin coat and stepped into the clearing day, rifle slung over her shoulder. She mounted Sage carefully, mindful of the mare's limp, and pointed her toward the edge of the ranch where an old friend lived. Within half an hour, she arrived at a small cottage nestled against a grove of aspens. The door swung open before she knocked. Dr. Sarah Morgan, tall, sharp-eyed, and quick-witted, stood in the doorway, apron streaked with flour. "Emily Carter, the devil did you drag in this time?" Emily managed a weary grin. "Need your hands, Sarah. Got a boy with a bullet wound and a story that'll freeze your blood." Sarah's smile faded. "Bring him in. The usual trouble, or is this new trouble?" "Both," Emily said, voice grim. They rode back, the tension between them humming like a live wire. Sarah was one of the few who knew the whole truth, about Emily's days as deputy marshal, about the day she'd laid her badge aside. Back at the house, Ben tried to rise as they entered. Sarah gave him a practiced once-over. "Sit. Let me look at you. Emily, hot water, now." Emily obeyed, watching as Sarah worked, hands gentle but efficient. She peeled back the bandage, inspected the wound, and gave Ben a dose of something strong. "You'll live, but you need rest and real food." "And you," she said, nodding at Emily, "need to tell me what the hell you've gotten yourself into." Emily poured coffee, the steam swirling between them. "Ben's running from the mining company. Claims he's got proof they're poisoning the valley. Ledgers, maps, the works. Says Crow's involved." Sarah's expression darkened. "Crow. Again. He's got half the law in his pocket, Emily. You know that?" Emily nodded. "I know, but I can't just turn my back. Not with what's happening to these ranchers." A sudden knock at the door made them freeze. Emily's hand drifted toward her rifle, but it was Sheriff Willard. Big, broad-shouldered, honest to the bone. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, hat in hand, eyes darting between Emily, Ben, and Sarah. "Morning, Emily. Doc, got a report about shots fired at your place last night." His gaze landed on Ben, sizing him up. "You care to explain?" Emily gave him a version of the truth, carefully trimmed of details about Ben's evidence. "Had some trouble with rustlers. Boys wounded. I patched him up, brought Sarah. Willard frowned. Rustlers, huh? Funny thing. Half the ranches along the creek had trouble last week, too. More'n one blamed the mining company, but nobody'll talk. Not with Crow sniffing around. Sarah stepped in, voice soft but firm. Ben's hurt, Willard. Emily did what anyone with a soul would do. Willard studied Emily, then Ben. After a tense moment, he nodded. All right, I'll file my report as no incident. But you watch your back, Emily. Crow's people are everywhere. After he left, Emily felt her jaw unclench for the first time in hours. She turned to Ben, who had gone pale again. You all right? Ben nodded weakly. Sheriff seems honest. He is, Emily said. But honesty's a dangerous thing these days. Sarah moved to the window, watching the horizon. I heard the mining companies stepping up their threats. 2 nights ago, the Learys found their well poisoned. Their cattle gone, just like Ben's uncle. This valley's a powder keg, Emily. Ben pulled his satchel closer, rummaging through crumpled papers. He handed Emily a page covered in odd markings and symbols. I found this mixed in with the ledgers. It's a code. Looks like a map. I can't crack it, but I think it points to the company's next target. Emily stared at the page. We'll need to get this to someone who can read it, and fast. Thunder rumbled, far off but moving closer. Emily felt the storm building again, not in the sky, but in her bones. She caught sight of her old badge in the half-open drawer, glinting in the morning light. It seemed to beckon her, daring her to reclaim what she'd lost. We have to warn the others, Emily said, jaw set. If the company's moving tonight, we can't wait. Ben looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. You believe me? Emily nodded. I believe you. And if Crow and his men want to fight, well, they picked the wrong ranch. Sarah smiled, fierce and proud. There's the Emily I remember. As Sage nickered outside, a gust of wind rattled the windows. Emily squared her shoulders, determination sharpening her voice. Get some rest, Ben. We ride at sunset. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in years, Emily Carter felt alive. The sun barely crested the edge of the prairie when the threat Emily feared most arrived. The uneasy calm of dawn was shattered by the distant thunder of hooves. Emily stood in the kitchen, the coded map spread on her table, tracing possibilities with Sarah and Ben. In that moment, the world outside seemed to hold its breath. Sage's frantic whinny echoed from the corral, breaking the silence. Emily looked up, instincts honed by years of law work roaring to life. They're here! Sarah rushed to gather supplies while Ben stuffed the map and documents back into his satchel. He tried to stand tall, but his wounds slowed him. Emily's mind raced as she threw open the door and peered across the frosted grass. 6 riders, dark figures against the pale gold horizon, fanned out, rifles slung low. We have to move. Now, Emily hissed, her voice clipped, adrenaline snapping through her veins. She herded Ben and Sarah toward the old stable, grabbing a battered revolver for Sarah as she went. The 3 ducked into the shadows, Sage waiting for them, body tense. Emily's mind calculated, limited ammunition, no backup, wounded allies. She caught Ben's eye, saw the fear and determination flickering there, and felt something old and sharp awaken in her chest. The stable reeked of damp straw and old sweat. Emily knelt behind the door, motioning Ben to the far side where the hayloft ladder offered an escape. We hold here, she whispered. If it gets bad, take the loft, drop out the back. Sage'll lead you through the north fence. Ben nodded, clutching his satchel. Sarah checked her revolver with shaking hands but a steady jaw. Emily pressed herself flat against the wall, peering through a crack in the boards as the gunman closed in. The lead rider, face hard, eyes like ice, shouted, "Carter, hand over the boy and the bag or we burn you out!" Emily's voice was steel. "This is my land. You try it, and you'll regret it." The men laughed, ugly and confident. One pulled a bottle from his saddlebag, doused it in lamp oil, and set it ablaze. Emily's heart hammered. Fire was the rancher's nightmare, more than bullets or bandits. She signaled Ben. "That fire trap we rigged? Now!" Ben scrambled up the loft ladder, teeth gritted against the pane. He yanked a rope Emily had shown him. A line soaked in kerosene snaked along the outside wall. The flames from the bottle met the oil, and a wall of fire sprang up along the fence line, momentarily blinding the attackers and driving their horses into a panic. Gunshots rang out, thudding into the stable walls. Emily fired back, aiming low, forcing the gunmen to scatter. Sage whinnied and crashed through a side gate, hooves battering the boards. Her wild charge gave Emily an opening. She shouted, "Go, now!" and shoved Ben and Sarah toward the back, her own revolver spitting thunder. The stable's roof caught, smoke billowing as heat surged through the old timbers. Emily's lungs burned. She heard Sarah cough, saw Ben shield his satchel as they slipped into the open. Sage circled, eyes wide, searching for them through the chaos. A gunman rushed the back door, face twisted with rage. Emily met him head-on, no time for mercy. She cracked him across the jaw with her rifle stock, sending him sprawling. Another shot whistled past her ear. "Keep moving!" They stumbled out into the yard, half blinded by smoke and flame. Sage reared, kicking at another attacker who tried to grab Ben. The man shrieked, dropping his pistol as the Mustang battered him aside. Emily grabbed Sarah's hand and ran, coughing, eyes streaming. Ben clung to Sage's mane, the mare leading him through the split-rail fence and into the cover of the cottonwoods. Emily fired one last shot, forcing the remaining gunmen to take cover. In the hush that followed, the stable blazed, a glowing beacon against the dawn. Emily fell to her knees beside Ben and Sarah, lungs heaving. Sage nuzzled her cheek, the horse's breath warm and steady. Sarah wiped blood from her lip, eyes fierce. "You saved us!" Emily shook her head, heart pounding. Sage saved us, and Ben's quick thinking. She looked at Ben, who was shaking but alive. "You did good." Smoke drifted across the prairie. The gunmen regrouped at a distance, cowed for now, but Emily knew this wasn't over. She watched the flames devour her father's old barn, so many memories lost in the crackle and roar. Ben pressed the satchel to his chest. "I'm sorry. I never meant for any of this." Emily's voice was rough. "You brought the truth. Sometimes that's all that matters." She turned to look at the badge glinting in the early sun, peeking from the pocket of her coat. The fire burned itself low, smoke trailing to the sky like a warning. In that moment, as dawn finally broke clean and bright, Emily made a silent promise. She would not run any longer. Her land, her friends, her principles, she'd defend them all, badge or no badge. Sarah squeezed her hand. "What now?" Emily's answer was simple but unyielding. "We go after them. This time, we fight back." As Sage stood watch, Emily Carter rose to her feet, steel returning to her spine. The old badge in her coat felt heavier than ever, its meaning pressing down like the weight of destiny. She looked to Ben and Sarah, saw their trust and hope, and knew there was no turning back. With the sun rising over the smoldering ruins, The war for the valley had truly begun. Smoke still hung low over the Carter ranch, curling like ghosts among the blackened timbers of the stable. Emily Carter stood in the wreckage, hat pressed against her heart. The loss of the barn cut deeper than any wound, a piece of her family gone forever. Sunlight glinted on something in the dirt at her feet. She bent down and found her father's branding iron, scorched but intact. Emily closed her eyes, breathing in the smell of ash and memory. Nearby, Sage grazed quietly, keeping a watchful eye on Ben and Dr. Morgan as they hauled the last of the supplies from what was left of the tack room. The morning was restless, thick with the tension of survivors. No one talked about what they'd lost. No one had to. Emily wandered away from the group, boots crunching over burned grass, until she reached a low rise on the far edge of the property. At its peak stood two simple gravestones, her husband's, and one for the child they'd never had the chance to raise. She dropped to her knees, fingers tracing the names chiseled in fading letters. The weight of her badge in her pocket seemed heavier than ever. "I'm so tired," she murmured, voice rough. "Every time I think it's over, something worse comes. I promised you I'd lay down that life, and I tried. But there's no peace, not when evil runs free." Wind stirred her hair as if in answer. The land was changing. Emily could feel it, the way a storm announces itself hours before the first bolt strikes. She pulled out the badge, the once shiny star dulled by years of disuse. It trembled in her hand. Was I ever worthy? Could I be again? A soft footstep sounded behind her. Ben approached, shoulders slumped, eyes red with exhaustion and guilt. "I'm sorry, Emily. If I hadn't come here..." She shook her head. "You didn't light the fire. Men like Crow did. All you did was carry the truth." He sat down beside her, silent for a long time. Finally he spoke, voice thick. "You asked why I ran. My family had a small place downriver. My mother died last winter, bad water. My father was never the same. Cattle started dying, neighbors grew sick. I found papers in the company office, ledgers about the runoff, a list of names to pressure or remove. My uncle, he tried to speak up, but Crow and his men made him disappear." Emily listened quietly. She saw the same pain and resolve in Ben that she once carried herself. "You kept going, even when you lost everything." Ben nodded. "I couldn't just let them win." A distant gunshot echoed through the valley. Both of them stiffened, rising to their feet. They hurried back toward the ranch house, Sage trotting alongside. Dr. Morgan met them at the porch, face pale. "It's the schoolhouse. Riders went through, tore the place apart. The Lane family's wagon was overturned. Their daughter, Mary, she's missing. She was one of yours, wasn't she, Emily?" Emily's jaw clenched. Mary Lane. The girl she'd pulled from a swollen river years ago, who'd given her wildflowers every spring since. She couldn't be more than 9. Ben's fists balled. "This is my fault." Emily shook her head. "No, this is Crow's doing. He's sending a message." Sheriff Willard galloped in from the west, dust cloud trailing. He dismounted, chest heaving, sweat streaming down his brow. "It's bad, Emily. Company men raided 3 ranches, took kids from families who refused to sell. Lane's girl, Henderson twins. 5, maybe 6 in all." Willard's voice broke. "They left a note at the schoolhouse. Said the kids come home if we hand Ben over, along with whatever evidence he's carrying." Emily's heart hammered. The company had escalated, turning the entire valley into their hostage. Parents gathered, faces drawn with terror and fury, demanding action. Emily looked around, searching for any sign of hope. Dr. Morgan touched her arm. They trust you. We all do. Willard faced her, voice shaking. I never wanted to see another war, Emily, but I'll stand with you, whatever it takes. Ben's voice trembled. You shouldn't have to do this for me. Emily turned to him, her eyes fierce. This isn't about you anymore, Ben. It's about everyone they've hurt. My family, yours, the Lanes, all of us. A hush settled over the crowd as Emily stepped up onto a crate, her voice carrying over the yard. We've all lost something to the company, some of us more than others. But if we let them use our children against us, we'll never be free of them. I know what it means to be afraid. I spent years running from my own shadow. But not today. Today, we fight back. A murmur of assent rippled through the gathered ranchers. Dr. Morgan squeezed her hand. Willard nodded, determination hardening his gaze. Emily looked down at the badge in her hand, running her thumb over the star. She pinned it to her coat, feeling the weight settle on her heart. I'm not the law I used to be, but I'm still the law of this valley, and I won't let Crow or anyone take another thing from us. The crowd roared, hope flickering like a flame in their eyes. Emily stepped down, legs unsteady but spirit unbroken. As the sun set over the battered ranch, Emily Carter and her allies prepared for what lay ahead. The company had made their move, and now she was making hers. Fear settled over the valley like an early frost. Word of the kidnappings spread faster than wildfire, twisting hope into panic. Ranchers clustered in Emily Carter's yard, desperate for leadership, hungry for answers. Mothers wept. Fathers argued in low voices, fists clenched at their sides. Emily felt the weight of their eyes. She had stood alone for so long, and now the whole valley looked to her. Sheriff Willard tried to calm the crowd. Everyone, quiet! Emily's got something to say. Let her talk. Emily climbed atop a wagon, surveying the anxious faces, neighbors, old friends, and strangers bound by fear. I know what you're feeling. You want to ride into town with every rifle you own, but that's what Crow wants. Chaos, panic, neighbors turning on each other. We won't give it to him. A rumble went through the crowd. Someone shouted, My boy's just 6. What if they hurt him? Another, How do we know they won't kill all of us anyway? Emily steadied her voice. If we stand together, we have a chance. But if we break, they'll pick us off one by one. I swear to you, no one fights alone. Not today. She glanced at Ben, who stood beside Dr. Morgan, still pale and weak but holding his head high. Emily caught his eye and nodded. He drew courage from her, even as she felt fear gnawing at her own heart. Suddenly, the sound of galloping hooves tore through the tension. The crowd parted as a column of riders approached, lawmen, their badges gleaming. At the front rode Victor Crow, tall in the saddle, his black hat low over his cold eyes. He surveyed the ranchers with practiced contempt, a predator among prey. Crow reined in his horse. His voice was slick as oil. Well, Emily Carter, I hear you've been stirring up trouble again. He glanced at the crowd, then at Ben. You folks know how this goes. You want your children back. You give us the thief and the evidence he stole. Do the smart thing. Nobody needs to get hurt. A growl went through the crowd. Emily locked eyes with Crow, standing her ground. You'll get nothing from us but a fight. We both know what your company's done. Poisoned wells, burned homes, taken lives. It ends now. Crow's smile was thin and dangerous. You never learned, did you? Some debts get paid in blood. Give me the boy and the satchel, or I'll take everything you care about." Ben stepped forward, voice trembling but strong. "This is between you and me. Leave them out of it," Crow laughed. "You got nerve, kid. Not much sense, but nerve." His hand drifted to his holster. "Think it over, Carter. You have until sundown. After that, you'll have more graves to dig." He wheeled his horse and rode off, his men close behind. The dust of their passage settled on the crowd, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Dr. Morgan whispered, "Emily, what do we do?" Emily felt a surge of helpless rage. She wanted to scream, to smash something, to run until she couldn't breathe. But she forced herself calm. "We fight back, but smart. We train, we defend, and we keep the children's hope alive." She gathered the ranchers. "Crow wants us scared and scattered. Instead, we'll turn this valley into a fortress. Every able hand learns to shoot and ride. Willard and I will show you how. Ben and Dr. Morgan, go over those documents. That map might hold the key to where the children are." Willard nodded, taking charge. Soon, the ranch bustled with activity. Men and women lining up for lessons in marksmanship, teenagers running drills, even the elders volunteering as lookouts. Emily walked among them, correcting stances, sharing the tricks she'd learned from years wearing a badge. Ben and Dr. Morgan sat on the porch, poring over the coded map. Ben's fever had broken, but he looked haunted. "There's got to be a pattern," he muttered, fingers tracing faded lines. "This symbol, it repeats near the river and again by the old mill." Dr. Morgan tapped her chin. "Maybe it's a signal, a place only the company would know." Together, they worked through the afternoon, piecing together clues and cross-referencing with stories from ranchers whose wells had run dry. Sage wandered among the frightened children, lowering her head for them to pet. Her presence calmed them. One little girl buried her face in the mare's mane and stopped sobbing for the first time since morning. Soon, Sage became a living talisman, proof that wildness could be gentle, that hope wasn't lost. As dusk approached, Emily gathered her allies in the old barn, now hastily converted into a war room. She laid out the coded map, Ben's stolen documents, and a list of possible hideouts. Willard drew up defense lines. Dr. Morgan distributed medical supplies. Everyone spoke in hushed, urgent voices. Suddenly, a shot rang out near the main gate. Ranchers scrambled, guns raised. Emily ran outside to find a message nailed to a fence post, a final threat from Crow, spelling out his ultimatum one last time. She ripped it down, heart thundering. She returned to the barn, badge glinting in the lantern light. "We're out of time. Crow wants us to surrender. But I say we fight for what's ours, not just for our children, but for the future of this valley." Her voice carried, hard and steady. "Tonight, we make our stand." As night fell and thunder rumbled in the west, Emily Carter stood among her people, her badge no longer a burden, but a beacon. The price of courage was high, but for Emily, there was no price too great for justice. Storm clouds gathered again over the valley, bruising the sky with thunder and electricity. But this time, the people of Carter Ranch did not cower. Emily Carter stood at the center of her barn, now transformed into a makeshift command post. The coded map spread before her, and a dozen determined faces watching her every move. She traced routes with her finger, voice firm and low. "The company's ranch is here, across the ravine. The storm will cover our approach, but we move fast and stay sharp. Our children's lives depend on it." The air crackled with nervous energy. Dr. Morgan worked quickly, handing out makeshift bandages, extra ammunition, and even old sheriff stars dug from drawers, badges of courage for the night's desperate mission. Sheriff Willard paced near the door, shotgun in hand, running through each roll one last time. Ben, dressed in borrowed clothes that fit poorly over his bandaged shoulder, stood apart with Sage, brushing her mane. He looked different tonight. Older, resolved. Emily approached, voice softer than usual. "You sure you're up for this?" Ben nodded. "If I don't help, I'll never forgive myself." His hand lingered on Sage's neck. "She trusts me. That means something." Emily smiled faintly, touched by the bond between boy and Mustang. "She'll carry the packs and draw fire if we need it. But you and I, our job is to get inside, find the children, and get them out." Outside, the rain began, soft at first, then swelling to a wild rhythm on the tin roof. Emily's plan was simple but risky. Approach under cover of darkness and storm, split into two teams. She, Ben, and a pair of sharpshooting ranchers would infiltrate the main house where the children were likely held. Willard, Dr. Morgan, and the rest would wait at the back gate, ready to provide cover and medical help if things turned ugly. Emily moved among her people, checking weapons, adjusting hats, sharing quick, quiet words of encouragement. The tension was palpable, but there was something else too. A sense of unity she hadn't felt since before her husband died. Even neighbors who'd feuded for years now worked side by side, preparing for the fight ahead. Mary Lane's father, once a bitter rival of Emily's over a disputed creek, gripped her hand. "I never thought I'd say it, but I'm glad you're leading us. Bring her home, Emily. Bring them all home." Emily squeezed his hand. "That's the only outcome I'll accept." In a corner, Ben and Dr. Morgan huddled over the map. "See here?" Ben whispered, pointing to a spot near the back wall of the company's compound. "It's marked with this symbol, a broken horseshoe. If the company uses the same codes as in the ledgers, it could mean a hidden gate or a weak spot in the fence." Morgan nodded. "We'll check it on approach. Any edge helps." As preparations continued, Emily gathered everyone for a final huddle. The rain beat harder, thunder shaking the boards overhead. "We leave in 20 minutes. Remember your signals. Owl call means regroup. Coyote yelp means retreat. Ben, you have the whistle. If something happens to me, you get the children out. No heroics. Understand?" They nodded, faces grave. Emily looked to Sage, fitting the Mustang with a light saddle packed with blankets and a canvas roll of supplies. She pressed her forehead to Sage's. "I need you to be brave for all of us." The mare nickered, as if she understood. Suddenly, one of the younger ranchers, a wiry kid named Jesse, spoke up, voice cracking with nerves. "My pa always said if you want the storm to pass, you gotta ride through it, not hide from it." Emily grinned. "That's right. Tonight we ride through." They slipped out in pairs, boots silent in the mud. Lightning flickered, painting the world in white and blue. Emily and Ben led the way, Sage walking behind them, her ears flicking at every sound. Each team member knew the risks. The company's men were armed, and Victor Crow himself was rumored to sleep with a pistol under his pillow. The trek was long and tense, every flash of lightning threatening to reveal their silhouettes. Emily's heart pounded. Each step felt heavier, but she pressed forward, driven by duty and rage and a hope she'd thought long dead. When they reached the ravine, the team paused. On the far side, the company's ranch sprawled, gates locked, lamps burning, figures on patrol. Emily gestured to the others. "Sage, now. she whispered. Ben led Sage around the side, shaking a sack of feed and tossing it into the wind. The Mustang broke away, galloping toward the rear of the compound. The guards shouted, rifles raised, and a handful sprinted to intercept. Sage dodged, rearing and whinnying, creating chaos at the back gate. With the guards distracted, Emily and her team slipped through the fence at the spot Ben had marked, a section softened by the storm, hidden by overgrown brush. Inside, the shouts and confusion worked to their advantage. Ben led the way through the shadows, pressing close to the walls, every sense on fire. Inside the house, the muffled cries of children filtered down the hall. Emily signaled, and the team fanned out, searching room by room. Downstairs, Willard and Dr. Morgan waited, the others standing guard in the storm. Suddenly, a shot rang out. Someone had spotted them. "Now!" Emily barked. The rescue was on. As chaos erupted in the compound, Emily and Ben found the room where the children huddled, eyes wide with terror. Emily knelt beside Mary Lane, brushing the hair from her face. "You're safe, honey. We're getting you out." The storm raged outside, but inside, hope flared, a spark against the dark. For the first time in a long time, Emily Carter believed they might just win. The night air pulsed with thunder as Emily Carter and her team slipped deeper into the company's stronghold. The storm raged, drowning out the sound of their boots and the hammering of their hearts. Rain battered the rooftops and lightning carved jagged scars through the darkness. Every shadow seemed to move. Every second stretched thin. Outside, Sage charged the rear gate, her dapple gray coat shining in the lightning's glare. The guards, distracted by the wild Mustang, fired warning shots and shouted orders, but Sage darted away, leading half the men on a frantic chase through the muddy pasture. Her diversion worked, just as Emily hoped, giving the rescue team precious minutes. Inside, Emily and Ben crept along the back corridor, pressed flat against peeling wallpaper. Dr. Morgan and Sheriff Willard covered their advance, whispering directions and watching for company men doubling back. Downstairs, two ranchers took positions behind overturned tables, ready to cover their retreat. The whole house felt tense, the air crackling with the scent of gun oil and wet earth. Ben's hands trembled as he clutched the satchel to his chest. He could hear the muffled cries of children somewhere above, voices pitched high with fear. "This way," he whispered, gesturing toward the narrow staircase at the end of the hall. Emily nodded, and they climbed, each step slow, every board threatening to betray them. Halfway up, a door slammed. Footsteps pounded overhead. Emily raised her revolver, motioning for Ben to stay close. They rounded the landing just as a burly guard swung out from a side room, shotgun gleaming in the flicker of lightning. The guard sneered. "Thought you could sneak in here, Carter?" Emily didn't hesitate. "Drop it!" she barked, and when the man lunged, she fired. 1, 2, her shots echoing down the hall. The guard crashed backward, weapon clattering to the floor. Ben flinched but kept moving, resolve settling in his eyes. They reached the end of the hall. From inside the last room, children's voices cried out for help. Emily kicked in the door, splinters flew, just in time to see another company thug hauling Mary Lane by the arm. "Let her go!" Emily shouted, leveling her gun. The man hesitated, weighing his odds, then shoved Mary aside and bolted for the window. Emily's bullet shattered the glass above his head, sending him tumbling into the night. Ben rushed to the children, clutching the satchel. "We're here to get you home," he said, voice soft, almost gentle. Mary Lane threw her arms around Emily's neck, sobbing. Emily hugged her tight, the weight of responsibility burning in her chest. "You're all right now. We're taking you back." Chaos erupted outside. Sage, still dodging bullets and ropes, crashed through a line of startled guards at the far side of the compound. The distraction let Sheriff Willard and Dr. Morgan move in, gathering the younger children and covering the team's exit. Rain poured harder, turning the yard into a swamp of mud and confusion. Back inside, Ben and Emily corralled the frightened children, ushering them down the stairs and into the hall. But as they neared the main door, another wave of gunmen stormed in, led by none other than Victor Crow. His eyes found Emily in an instant, rage and recognition flashing across his face. "Well, look what the storm dragged in," Crow sneered, gun raised. "You just can't stay out of other people's business, can you?" "Carter?" Emily stood between Crow and the children, hand steady on her revolver. "Your business is poison and pain. I've seen enough." Crow's smile twisted. "I warned you. Give me the boy and the evidence, and I'll let these kids walk out alive." Emily's voice rang out over the thunder. "You let them go, or I'll end this right now." Crow cocked his gun, fury boiling over. The two faced each other, the years of bad blood between them coming to a head. Lightning flashed. In that instant, Crow fired. Emily ducked, rolled behind the stairwell, and returned fire. The hallway exploded in gunshots, bullets thudding into walls and splintering banisters. Dr. Morgan dragged two sobbing children to safety, while Willard and a pair of ranchers fired from cover, forcing the gunmen back. Ben crouched beside Emily, clutching the satchel, as the air filled with the smell of gunpowder and fear. Crow's men fell back, 2 wounded, the rest scattering into the storm. Crow cursed, ducking into the main office. Emily darted after him, boots slipping on the wet floor. She found him rifling through a drawer, searching for the company's last hope, a stash of gold and deeds to the poisoned land. "End of the line, Victor," Emily said, voice raw. Crow whirled, gun drawn, eyes wild. "You think you've won? The company owns this valley." Emily stepped forward, badge gleaming in the lantern light. "Not anymore." They circled each other, guns drawn. Crow fired, missing by inches. Emily squeezed the trigger. Her bullet struck Crow's gun hand, sending his weapon clattering. He screamed, collapsing to his knees. Rain poured in through the shattered window as Emily cuffed him, dragging him to his feet. "You're done, Crow. This is for everyone you hurt." The battle inside raged a few moments longer, but when the smoke cleared, the children were safe. The company's men had fled or surrendered, and the Carter Ranch allies stood victorious in the ruined stronghold. Sage trotted into the yard, mud-splattered and proud, as if she understood the role she'd played. Emily gathered the rescued children, pressing Mary Lane's trembling hand in hers. "You're all going home," Emily promised, voice trembling not with fear, but relief. The storm outside raged on, but inside, hope had finally broken through the darkness. Morning came slow and gray, the storm finally passing but leaving the world washed raw. Emily Carter stood outside the company's ranch house, now battered, doors hanging from their hinges, windows blown out by the gunfight. Smoke from last night's fires drifted over the mud-soaked yard, mingling with the dawn chill. She stared at the horizon, watching as the first rays of sunlight cut through the clouds. For the first time in months, the valley felt clean again, like the rain had driven out the poison. Behind her, children trickled from the house. Eyes wide and faces streaked with dirt, but alive and safe. Mary Lane clung to Emily's side, refusing to let go. All around, parents wept openly as they found their sons and daughters, hugging them, as if afraid they might disappear. The battered community gathered in the yard, their joy tinged with exhaustion and disbelief. Sheriff Willard, battered and limping from a graze to the leg, surveyed the scene. "We did it, Emily. You did it." His voice was quiet, but his pride was clear. Emily shook her head, glancing at Ben and Dr. Morgan. "We all did it. This valley finally stood together." She knelt to brush the hair from Mary's face, voice gentle. "You were brave, little one. You're safe now." The company's gunmen, those not already scattered by fear or storm, were herded together, guarded by ranchers and townsfolk who only weeks before had avoided conflict at any cost. Victor Crow, hand-bound and face drawn, sat slumped against the porch post. His eyes dark with hatred and defeat. He spat at Emily's boots as she passed, but she ignored him. His power had evaporated overnight. Ben emerged from the house, carrying his battered satchel and a bundle of ledgers and documents. He was pale, sweat on his brow, but stood tall as he met Emily at the edge of the crowd. "It's all here. Everything the company did, names, bribes, the locations of the poisoned wells, the map, the ledgers, the coded letters." His hand shook, but his eyes were bright with purpose. Emily nodded. "Go with Sheriff Willard. Take it straight to the governor's agents in Cheyenne. Don't stop for anyone. If even half of what's in there is true, they'll have no choice but to act." Willard clapped Ben on the back. "I'll send my best man with you. You ride out within the hour." As the plan took shape, Emily saw a line of riders on the far ridge, men in crisp coats with the governor's seal. News had traveled fast, and the authorities came ready to act. Within minutes, agents descended on the compound, collecting evidence, arresting company enforcers, and escorting Victor Crow and his lieutenants away in iron shackles. For the first time since her husband's funeral, Emily allowed herself a breath of relief. She watched as the governor's men inspected the poisoned wells, sealing them off and recording every detail in their ledgers. The valley's water would run clear again, but the scars would remain. Dr. Morgan stood beside her, face haggard but determined. "It's over, Emily. We stopped them." Emily wasn't so sure. She looked around at the ruined houses, the frightened children, the grave markers on distant hills. "It's not over, Sarah. Not for these families, but it's a start." In the aftermath, Emily found herself at the center of a whirlwind. Reporters from Cheyenne arrived with notebooks, eager for stories of courage and defiance. Ranchers pressed her hand, thanking her with tears in their eyes. Children crowded around Sage, the Mustang now a legend in their minds, asking for rides and retelling how the wild horse had outsmarted gunmen and saved the day. One afternoon, as the dust began to settle, the governor's chief agent called Emily aside. He was a big man, stern but fair, with the air of someone who'd seen both good and evil. "Miss Carter, this valley owes you its freedom. If you'll take the badge again, the post of Marshal is yours. You've more than earned it." Emily stared at the badge, the silver star glinting in his hand. Memories flooded back. Her first arrest, the day she buried her husband, the years she spent trying to forget she'd ever worn a gun. Her voice was quiet. "I'm grateful, sir. I truly am. But I'm not sure I'm ready. The law needs someone with peace in their heart. I still have too many ghosts." The agent nodded, respect in his eyes. Sometimes the ones with ghosts are the ones who see most clearly. "The offer stands, Emily. Whenever you're ready." That night, the people of the valley gathered for a celebration, A bonfire lit where the company's gallows once stood. There was laughter and music, food shared from every table. Dr. Morgan tended to wounds, Willard told tall tales, and Ben stood quietly beside the fire, finally looking like a man with a future. Emily sat apart, watching the faces in the firelight, feeling the walls around her heart slowly come down. Sage, clean and brushed, paraded among the children, letting them braid wildflowers into her mane. The Mustang had become a symbol, a reminder that wild things could choose to stand with the good, that hope could come from the most unlikely places. As the fire burned down and the stars came out, Emily walked alone to the edge of the crowd. The governor's badge felt heavy in her palm, not with regret, but with promise. She'd fought for justice, for truth, for everyone who called this valley home. The wounds would take time to heal, but for the first time, Emily believed they might. She looked up at the sky, breathing in the clean, cool air. "Thank you," she whispered, to her husband, to the land, to the part of herself that never gave up. Justice, hard-won and imperfect, had finally come to the valley. Morning dawned clear and gold, sunlight spilling over the Carter Ranch as if washing away the stains of the past. The air was sweet with the scent of wet sage and wildflowers. For the first time in years, Emily Carter woke not to dread or duty, but to the soft sounds of a world returning to itself. The land, scarred but unbeaten, stretched out before her, a patchwork of hope. She rose early, drawn outside by the gentle bustle of life. Ranchers repaired fences and roofs. Children ran wild through the fields, their laughter echoing down to the creek. The sound filled Emily with something close to joy. It was not the careless happiness she'd once known, but a hard-earned peace that grew deeper with every sunrise. Sage waited for her at the gate, ears flicking forward, mane still tangled with the wildflowers children had woven into her hair the night before. Emily stroked the mare's strong neck, smiling at the memory of Mary Lane and the others leading Sage through the town square, calling her their hero horse. It was true. Without Sage's courage and uncanny sense, so much would have been lost. Emily walked the ranch, boots sinking into soft, dew-soaked earth. The rebuilding was everywhere. Willard's men raising new beams for the schoolhouse, Dr. Morgan tending to minor scrapes and stubborn coughs, Ben helping the Lane family shoe their horses. The whole valley had changed. Where fear had once ruled, there was now a stubborn, hopeful unity. Ben caught sight of her as he lifted a heavy anvil into the new blacksmith's shed. "Mornin', Emily." He set the anvil down with a grunt, wiping his brow. "Feels strange, not looking over my shoulder." Emily smiled. "You earned your peace, Ben. This valley owes you as much as it owes anyone." He looked down, suddenly shy. "I never had a place that felt like home, not until now. The Lanes offered me a corner of their land. Figured I'd start my own shop, help build things instead of running from them." Emily clapped his shoulder. "That's the best kind of future." She watched him walk away, standing taller with every step, and felt a swell of pride. Ben's journey from hunted stranger to trusted neighbor mirrored the valley's own path from fear to hope. Emily wandered past the half-built schoolhouse. Inside, the laughter of children floated out. Mary Lane reciting the names of the Mustangs she'd spotted that morning. The town's elders sat beneath a spreading cottonwood, teaching the youngest to whittle toy horses from scraps of wood. Even the old feuds seemed to have vanished in the storm's wake. Folks worked side by side, stories and laughter filling the gaps left by tragedy. Dr. Morgan joined her, arms folded, a tired but genuine smile on her lips. "You look like a woman who's finally found her place." Emily shrugged, watching the children. "Maybe I'm still looking, but I know it's somewhere in the middle of all this noise and hope." Morgan nudged her. "The governor's office sent word. They still want you to wear that badge. Said the valley trusts no one more." Emily touched her coat pocket, feeling the cold shape of the star. Maybe they're right. Maybe this time I'd wear it not because I have to, but because I choose to. Morgan grinned. That's all anyone could ask. The news spread quickly. Emily Carter would serve as Marshal again, not just as a figure of law, but as a mentor and guide. She spent her days teaching young ranchers how to shoot straight, how to listen before they judged, how to stand for what was right even when it hurt. She met with families, settled disputes, and led the valley not just with authority, but with hard-earned compassion. Sheriff Willard became her closest ally, helping rebuild both the valley's defenses and its sense of justice. He deputized a handful of local boys and girls, eager and green, and Emily taught them what she'd learned. Courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to do good anyway. Ben's blacksmith shop became a gathering place, his forge hammer ringing out across the fields every morning. He fixed wagons, made shoes for horses, even built a new weather vane for the church steeple, a Mustang in full gallop, mane streaming like fire. The children, safe and bold, adopted Sage as their own. The town decided to honor the mayor. Artisans from across the county worked side by side to carve Sage's likeness in stone, raising her statue in the town square. The inscription read, "For loyalty and hope, the spirit of the valley." The dedication was the largest gathering the valley had ever seen. As Emily watched the children braid fresh flowers into Sage's mane beneath the stone monument, she realized the mare had become more than a symbol. She was a living reminder that wildness and freedom could choose to serve the good. As the days passed, Emily found herself drawn more and more to the people she'd once held at arm's length. She sat at kitchen tables, listened to confessions and dreams, laughed with the young and wept with the old. She became not just Marshal, but a friend and counselor, her presence steady as the land itself. One evening, as dusk painted the prairie with gold, Emily walked up to the old hill overlooking the ranch. She paused at her husband's grave, the wildflowers she'd left now blooming. She knelt, brushing her fingers over the carved name. "I did what was right," she murmured. "I fought when it mattered, and I found my way back to the world." A soft breeze stirred the grass. Emily rose, feeling the weight of grief lighten. She looked out over her land, the distant laughter of children, the soft wicker of sage nearby, the glow of lanterns in every window. It was not a perfect world. Scars remained, as they always would. But in the ashes of old wounds, something new had grown. As night fell, Emily Carter walked home through a valley reborn, knowing that redemption was real, that hope could be chosen again and again, and that even in the darkest times, the spirit of the valley, the spirit of its people, and its wild Mustang would never be broken.